Inspiration Nation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with my very good friend Jose Noya. How are you, Joe? And what inspiration would you like to provide us with today?
Thank you, Lee. Today we are talking about first seek to understand, then to be understood. So this is the fifth habit from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful. That's what we'll be talking about today. So
I'm loving this little mini
really
series
excited
on Stephen Covey that we're doing, Joe. It's a good little run of episodes or topics for you.
It's a book that I've had over 20 years. I said before, probably longer, but I think that's why I want to share it with people. And Stephen always talks about sharing the lessons, so that's what I'm exactly going to do. I'm going to share the lessons, and that's what I'm going to do. So, what do you want to do, Lee? Do you want to do your bit, or do you want me to carry on?
Now, let's give it a go. And when I get bored of listening to your talk, I'll do some of our shilling of social media and stuff like that. I will just mention though, there are a lot of people joining us both on TikTok and on YouTube Live. Just follow us, _Inspiration Nation TikTok, and just search for Joe Noya. Jose Noya, sorry, look at me, common naming you. Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation on YouTube. Hit follow on TikTok, subscribe on YouTube. You'll find out when we're going live each and every week. So we appreciate everyone is there. If you want to comment on the show, ask Joe questions, ask me questions, but my answers aren't as good, just feel free to do that. Carry on, Joe, with your good self.
Of course they are, Lee. Of course they are. Yeah, so first seek to understand the fifth habit. I'm going to show you what the page is. It's different copies, but it's like this. It's got the thing there, and to show it TikTok, and you've got it on there as well. So this is one thing that I think is really one of the important things I always bring up. In fact, it's one of the things that come up in my training today, where people where we're listening, and we've always had that thing where, have you ever been with friends? You tell them something, and they say, "Oh yeah, that's great," and then they talk about themselves. Ever had that? I expect you probably had it.
I've had that sometimes,
Joe, other people.
But this weekend, right, what I was doing, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you turn back to your holiday, and they go, "Oh, what I did was," and they just, what they're waiting for to do is just to respond. They're waiting for their turn to speak rather than listening to you. So this is what this is all about. But Stephen Covey takes it to another level. He's about listening empathically, and this is the real key around listening, because I think we can always be better at listening. And I always talk about, when I'm training or coaching, that we can always improve our listening. They say there's 4 levels of listening. There's no levels of listening. There's infinite levels of listening, because you can always be better. And listening takes a lot of energy. I don't know how you think or feel about that, Lee. Have you frozen? I think you've frozen.
I've not. I'm listening intently,
Oh,
Joe.
you went very still. I thought, oh no, I've lost it.
No, last week's internet issues have been resolved. I had to get the engineering man out after the podcast, Joe. But it's all fixed now. It's all good. I was listening intently. I do think it takes energy. This is something, and I don't know if it's an every person thing or a Lee thing. I think sometimes I can slip into that. It's not the waiting to talk bit, but it's the having something to say and wanting to be involved in the conversation. But I think sometimes the listening slips when it gets overrun with your input or your ideas or things you want to feedback, or etc., etc. And I'm trying to catch myself in my head, and I am trying to be a better listener with that. And I do think it's hard work. It almost goes against, I don't know if it's all human nature or certain behaviours or what, but I think it can take effort to be conscious of it.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah, and the thing is with coaching, this is why coaching is so powerful, because you do really have to listen to probe and get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. So when I do training or coaching, people say, "Oh, well, I think this," and I go, "What do you mean by that?" Like, you ask about the context behind what they're saying, which gives you deeper, so you get a deeper understanding of what they're trying to say. Especially when I'm checking knowledge as well. When people say, "Oh, well, say for instance, I don't know, I've got to listen to this person because they sound distressed." What do you mean by distressed? So you're then getting their context behind it. So you're really seeking to see it from their point of view, so you can understand how they understand it. And does that matter? If you're training someone because you're trying to transfer knowledge, does that fit the model that they should be understanding? So it's really good. So it's good for training. But I love coaching, because you're not doing that. You're not trying to give people anything. You're just trying to get them to where they want to be, right? And that's why I prefer the coaching element. But I wanted to share something from the book around the little conversation that Stephen was talking about. And it's about a conversation, and it's on this particular edition. It's on page 246. And it's really interesting, because what it does, it talks about the conversation, but it also talks about what the other person might be thinking when you have that conversation. So I would just like to go go through that a little bit. So because I think we can all be guilty of listening to people but not really listening to them, and actually what's going on behind. And at the end of this podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read out some of the actions which you can take to improve the listening. And this is stuff that I still want to take away, because we can all be better, right? We can just all be better.
Joe, I just shout loads of great likes coming in on TikTok at the moment. So thank you for listening. Love to know what you think of the show as Joe thumbs his way through his book. And I'll just say, if you want to support us, head over to Twitter, follow the show at ListenToIN, Listen TOIN. We appreciate the support there. Content on there every day. The more you share and retweet that, the more it helps us in the algorithms, and we appreciate that. And inspirationnation.org.uk, just head over, get everything to do the podcast as well. Look at that, seamless, Joe, seamless.
Yeah, and do you know what? Someone's hi Jose. I've got these little stars, green stars. I don't know a name, but thank you for liking the live. I appreciate you. If you put your name in, they'll give you a shout out. But it's on TikTok. It's green with some white stars.
Double green star.
Like.
That's
So
their
thank
name.
you so much.
That's where you've got to go with. Double green star.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do. So let me just read this passage out, because I just wanted to confirm it, because I did highlight
Theo,
it.
by the way, Theo, thank you for the support. We appreciate it.
Well done, brilliant. Okay. So it starts off with, it says, so it's like a conversation, father to son, and we can do this with our family. So this is an example conversation. So it says, boy, dad, I can't get it right. I've had it. School is for the birds. What's the matter, son? It says probing in brackets.
Can you do different voices for the boy and the dad, Joe, just to liven it up a little bit?
I don't know if I can do this.
It's
voices.
Like, oh my God, Dad, I don't want to go to school anymore. And then be like, okay,
it's totally
son.
impractical. It's totally impractical. I don't get a thing out of it. Well, you just can't see the benefits yet, son. I felt the same way when I was your age. Maybe we could do something like that. I remember thinking what a waste of some classes were, but those classes turned out to be the most helpful to me later on. Just hang in there. Give it some time. Advising. I've given it 10 years of my life. Can you tell me what's good? Plus Y is going to be to me as an auto mechanic. An auto mechanic? You've got to be kidding, Evaluating. That's the father, by the way. No, I'm not. Look at Joe. He's quit school.
Voice.
What's that?
Deep father voice for father.
Okay. No, I'm not. Look at Joe. He's quit school. He's working on cars and he's making lots of money. Now that's practical. It may look that way now, but several years down the road, Joe's going to wish he'd stayed in school. You don't want to be an auto mechanic. You need an education to prepare you for something better than that. Advising. So the father in this instance is just advising, not really listening, just trying to give advice without first listening to the problem. I don't know, Joe. Joe's got a pretty good setup. Look, son, have you really tried? Probing and evaluating is put there. I've been in high school for 2 years now. Sure, I've tried. It's just a waste. That's a highly respected school, son. Give them a little credit. Advising, evaluating again. Well, the other guys just feel the same way I do. Do you realise how many sacrifices your mother and I have made to get you to where you are? You can't quit. You've come this far. Evaluating. I know you sacrificed, Dad, but it's not worth it. Look, maybe if you spent more time doing your homework and less time in front of the TV. Advising and evaluating again. Look, Dad, it's just no good. Oh, never mind. I don't want to talk about this anyway. So you can see from that conversation that there's no trying to find out what's going on. There's no thinking about, okay, what is actually going on for the son in this instance. It's just really just sort of saying, well, this is what you should do. It's like a telling rather than trying to find what's really going on. And I think this is a lot of the things that we can learn from, right? So it's just noting from that conversation, like, and later on it goes like, says like, Dad, if you just listen, I really need to talk to you about something important. That's what the son is trying to say, but because they're not really listening and advising, it's just missing the point. So that's really wanting to pull from the book, really, is that when we're talking to people, we need to give time and space rather than jumping into advising mode. We need to really listen to what the message is and what people are trying to say to us. So have you had any instances, Natalie, where you've had this situation at all?
Now, just before we get into that, Joe, I want to give you a 6, maybe a 5.5, maybe not even a 6 out of 10 for your voices. I think there's some improvement we can make there.
100%. I agree with that point.
I think that's an area you need to take that away and think about it before next week, and maybe come
I will
back
try
with some fresh
I will
ideas.
try and make a better. I'll try and make a better thing of it, definitely, for sure.
I mean, I appreciate the effort. Don't get me wrong. There was just a terrible effort. There's no way out of it.
I know it's hard, right? It's hard, but that's it. We just got to get better, right?
Got to put yourself out there.
Can only go up from there.
That's
can only go up from there, right?
That is a very glass half full mentality. I love it. That's how we should all be. Yeah, I think I have been on the receiving end of those conversations. I think I've probably been on the opposite end of the receiving end of those conversations. I've been the dad and the son in that situation, I think, Joe. I think it's fair to say. And it is, when you step back and you look at that in that way they put it out there, there was no inquiring or understanding. It was very much, I know best for you. I'd also like to put out there that you can do better than being an auto mechanic is a terrible view of the world. And I know that was supposed to be a bad example.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing, isn't it? We've all got, it's almost like you're imposing your own judgments.
Not everyone wants to follow someone else's path, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great example. But like I said, hands up, I'm certain I would have been on both sides of that equation, without a doubt. I'm sure most of us would have been.
So Meg has been on the podcast. So Meg talk about anxiety, and there's sometimes
episode 12 back in the archive, people, if you want to go and have a listen.
Oh, brilliant memory, Lee! Brilliant memory. Sometimes Meg just wants to talk, but I'm in coaching mode. I'm trying to, Dad, I just don't want you to coach. I just want you to listen and just be there as a sounding board. And I think we can learn a lot from that, right? Sometimes people don't want you to do anything other than just be there and listen intently and acknowledge what's being said. And that's what I really want to get across as well, is that, we tend to go into solution mode. We've got to try and resist that temptation. And we've got to try and resist the temptation of trying to do things that we think they need rather than just sitting there and listening. And the cues that I've learned over the years is that I will just wait now. When Meg talks, using Meg as an example, this happens, a while, is that I will just sit and talk, and until Meg says, oh, well, what do you think? That's when I'll go into it. I won't even try and give advice unless it really is listen if they want it. But one, I'll only do it if they ask me for an opinion. And two, once they say, oh, can you help me? That's when I'll go into a mode of coaching and going into that space, rather than, that's the thing I've learned, rather than going to that space straight away, because it may not be that person wants that at that point. And I think we should be led by the person coming to you for that sounding board, right? Because I've done some mentoring as well. And so another things I've done with mentoring is that I want to structure an agenda, but I've realised that doesn't really work. The parameters have got to be set by the person. So your best will in the world, you'll have the best intentions, but it's not about you, it's about them. So you need to be guided by them or what they need. And so how I do that is get feedback from them and say, hey, is this working for you? Is it not working for you? And I do that with a lot of people in my training and coaching. So building the structure around them with what they say is the key around empathic listening. And there will be some applications. I'll read them at the end. But that's what my thoughts on. But anyway, thoughts from you, Lee?
No, I think that is spot on. In fact, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine probably not more than a couple of weeks ago on the same subject, specifically on the way we framed it in the conversation was people aren't always ready to hear the solution. So you might, like you said, best intention, you're trying to help, but sometimes people they've got a problem and they almost, a concern or a problem or a challenge or an issue, whatever it is, their thing, like you said, you get med, sometimes they just want to sound off and they just want the validation of the issue. They don't want it to be fit. They're not there in their journey yet, and actually you do the listening, you give them that chance to validate by just putting it out there, and then they will reach out again when they're ready for the solution, and that's where you can help them with it. But actually, where you try and give the solution, you're almost devalidate, whatever the right word is, you're not giving validation to the issue. You've almost skipped it, and you're like, oh no, but it's not a problem because of which is probably completely correct, but their brain is just looking for that validation, and you've almost steered them off of it, and they almost try and fight harder to get that validation. And it can, you're talking about the same thing but talking about cross purposes. It's really funny. I say we were just talking about it a couple of weeks ago with one of my friends, and exactly that same thing. And I say that was similar thing to you said. The active listening thing is, are they looking for a solution or are they looking for validation? And you've got to make sure you give the right thing so you don't end up going in that wrong direction, exactly like you said there. So I absolutely believe that.
Yeah, it's actually just sitting there and actually sitting in the conversation with that. You actually having your job there is to just spend the energy just listening.
Yes.
That's the key. So yeah, I agree. I just want to give a shout out to Sitter for following. Thank you for following on TikTok. I really appreciate it. We're up to 1K likes. Thank you so much. I say, it's amazing. Thank you so much for the likes. It's incredible. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. It really does. It really does. So thank you so much. Thank you, Theo. Really appreciate it. It's massive. So yeah, what was I going to say? You sparked something off about that, but as I say, it does have some suggestions around how we can apply empathic listening. And it is empathic listening. It's about really listening. One of the cues, I'll read them out. I think there's some really good things in here. So some of the applications we can do is to go, right, 1, select a relationship in which you sense the emotional bank account is in the red. So when we say in the red, we just mean that you haven't got a great relationship with them, right? Maybe you've not come across personally. It says, try to understand and write down the situation from the other person's point of view. Now, we did this. Remember that we did with Ryan. Do you remember we did the NLP round 3 Robin, put yourself in someone else's shoes,
yes,
and then put your fly on the wall.
Yes.
So again, Stephen is using some NLP here to try and see it from that point of view. So situation. So let's say write down the situation from the other person's point of view. In your next interaction, listen for understanding, comparing what you are hearing with what you wrote down. How valid were your assumptions? Did you really understand that individual's perspective? I think that's really powerful. If you write down what you think, but then you compare it to what it is, I think that's a really powerful concept. Number 2, share the concept of empathy with someone close to you. Tell him or tell them you want to work on really listening to others and ask for feedback in a week. How did you do? How did it make that person feel? It's a quite nice suggestion. Number 3, the next time you have an opportunity to watch people communicate, cover your ears for a few minutes and just watch what emotions are being communicated that may not have come across in words alone. I really like that you would just close your ears and then
looking for the body language.
Watch. Yeah, I think you'd be quite powerful. And next time you catch yourself inappropriate using an autobiographical response means basically trying to solve their problem, like probing, evaluating, advising, or interpreting. Try to turn the situation into positive by acknowledgement and apology, i.e., like what you said, Lee, about just being there for them, right? You said a word. What was the word you said? You said something.
Validating.
Validate, I think. Yes. Yeah. You're just sitting there. You don't necessarily validating the point of view. You're listening. You don't want to enforce anything. Yeah. You just want to listen to them, right?
I think it's almost self-validation by just getting to tell someone about it.
And then it says, base your next presentation on empathy. Describe the other point of view as well as or better than its proponents. Then seek to have your point understood from their frame of reference. So there are some actual action points from that particular chapter. So definitely, it's always a work in progress, and we do make mistakes. And so I think there's some really powerful tools you can use. I think the one for me that sticks out, and I don't know, and Lee, I'll ask you in a minute what you think yours is, but mine is really around, doing that piece about what you think is the truth, and then actually trying to sit back and think, is this the truth? But trying to sit in their shoes and then analyze it. I don't think we do enough of that. Even I could do much more of that. So yeah, some things to take away there, I think. Absolutely. Just think star, and then so we've just got some more follows on Twitter, not Twitter, what am I talking about? TikTok. So hi Sitter, and thank you Theo for following. Just followed, which is great. There you go.
Stuff,
Thoughts, Lee, on any of that? Thoughts.
You can't just keep shouting thoughts until I say something.
Thoughts.
Give me some thoughts, Lee. No,
that's not empathic listening, is it? No.
Not in the slightest bit, Joe. Not in the slightest bit. It's like you say, it is. It's the, and I like. It's a thing you say quite often. It's like you say, sit in the uncomfortable space or sit where it's difficult, and it's just like you said, sit in the conversation, be in the moment, try and understand without challenge. This is where the energy thing comes in, because it's really difficult. Because you've got to be. You're listening to what the person's saying. You're listening to the body language. You're kind of listening to what's below the surface. You're not trying to not step over that line where you're problem solving or challenging. So this is all worthwhile and really great stuff. But I think this is, back to your first question, Joe, I think this is where the energy aspect of this sort of thing comes in. It's why, and credit to you if you do it, it's why coaching is difficult, because it's not just being knowledgeable in the subject and talking to people about it. It's all of these things. It's drawing the best out in people. It's taking people on that journey. and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of skills, and tricks isn't the right word. What am I looking to say?
I know what you mean. Skills is probably like it's the building of a skill base, aren't you? I think you're right. And I think the beauty of coaching, I know you said you be knowledgeable in that, but actually when you coach, you don't have to be any knowledge at all.
No,
you just have to be able to listen to them, right? And the knowledge comes from you just listening to that person. And the reason I say that, and I say this with a lot of conviction, is because, you know, I was on a project, I told you about it, and it was quite intense. And I knew nothing about, I went into an area of the business I knew nothing about, and I was coaching leaders in that area, and I knew nothing about their area, because the whole point of it is the solution comes from the person that you're speaking with. And when I'm in that mode, it's a beautiful place to be in. When you're really in the flow and it's a great conversation, it is about the conversation. You just get so much out of it. Honestly, it's just the most amazing feeling in the world, where you can already hear the solutions coming out, and you can just play it back. You said this, and they didn't realise they said it, and then you play it back and say, oh yeah, and then they sort of build a plan off the back of what that is. And again, coaching is a big part of listening, and it's taught me so much to listen. And again, I can still be a lot better. It's just it's a lifetime of continual development. And as I say, this is the book that drove me a lot. Again, I got this book. It's such a great book, and I'm getting chills just talking about it. It's taught me so much, and I've grown so much since that book. The beauty about that book is that you can come back to it in years' time. You would have grown as a person, but when you reread it, it talks to you differently because of the different place you're in. Definitely would say to pick up a copy. And it's not just one-hit read. It's almost like a go back to book and reevaluate. And that's why I'm going through it now, because even after 20 years, I still read it and still pick bits out of it that are really valuable. So if you're going to take anything else, I think the big takeaway for me is just to sit in that space and I'm much better not solutionized, but it still comes. I just need to still rein that back, because every time I do train coaching out, people do. I see it all the time. People are solutionizing when they have to step back, and it's one of the hardest things to do. Anyway, over to you, Lee. That was my big takeaway from today's conversation.
I like that. That was a good takeaway. Rushing into the takeaways. I mean, if I'm honest, Joe, I've got no idea what you just said. I kind of zoned out, but I'm sure it's not really relevant to today's show.
Well, if I was a 6 on my storytelling, I'm not sure how I should rate your listening.
Of course, I did not zone out, Jose. For me, I just think it's a consciousness thing. Again, I tweak that sometimes I do push into conversations sometimes, and it's something I need to rein back on. I don't know if other people feel this challenge, but I think where a lot of interactions are like we're doing, Joe, but you know, it's video based. It's harder to get cues for points in conversations and things like that, because it's a different way of working. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of it, and I think I speak face to face with people more than I ever do. It's just a new type of structure around it with doing it, you know, without some of the cues you'd normally get face to face. But that's my challenge to overcome, and I'm conscious on doing it. So I do think it's the effort thing will stick with me. I need to know it's going to take a bit of effort, and if it doesn't feel like it's taking a bit of effort, I'm probably doing it wrong.
And I think, you know, we can all jump into that though, Lee, because we will get enthusiastic about things, don't we? We want to sort of try and get that in, and that's where that emotional control comes in, doesn't it? And it's the emotional control. I know when I get excited about something, I know I do struggle to contain it, but I'm much better at it. But I know before I'd be so enthusiastic that I'd almost like overpowering people and giving it too much. I mean, Lee's actually experienced this from me before. He's like, slow down.
I think I can do exactly the same thing, and I think that's my, you know, this is just reinforcing my head to work on that, because I do think, and I'll probably do it face to face as much as I do any other way as well. It's probably a convenient thing to say that it's kind of a changing environment.
Yeah, and I think, Liz, going back to you introducing the NLP and it's that fly on the wall thing. Can you? Because you say you do it right, where you can. I find it challenging. Like having a conversation. In that conversation, can I see the fly on the wall and look at that conversation in the moment to see actually what is going on here? Am I doing a lot of talking? Am I not listening? Or am I actually doing something that's helping that other person? I think that fly on the wall thing is such a powerful tool. And I can't remember what episode it is, but I'll definitely encourage everybody doing a bit of a Lee here. Go back to the episode with me, with Lee, Ryan and myself, where we do an exercise where we are doing that fly on the wall about putting yourself in people's positions. And actually this would really help with this particular part of the
episode 146, that is, Joe.
146. I can't believe that's 146.
I'm making it up, by the way. I've got absolutely no idea, but I thought you'd be
better
impressed
say.
nonetheless.
God, you should have just left it. I was well impressed.
Anyway.
I was well impressed. No, I love that.
Head over inspirationnation.org.uk. Give it a listen anyway. I need to check now which one that was, Joe. Right, any more from Stephen Covey for today, Joe? Or
no, that's it. So that's So I am going to serialise the book. So keep tuned in, keep downloading. Give us your views on your book. Have you read it? What are you going to do? Give us your big takeaways. Get in contact with social media, all that stuff that Lee talks about. And tell us what you're doing. Are you listening? Are you solutionising? Are you listening? Are you really listening to someone? Maybe you've got a family member. You're trying to always solve their problems. Well, take a step back. Don't try and do that. Just listen and see what happens.
146 was our 2022 resolutions, by the way, Joe, just so you know. 146. 146. So it's nothing to do with what Joe said, but still, I would say it's worth listening to. But every episode before and after's got more listens, so maybe it's not worth listening to. Maybe go to 147 instead. More people like that one.
Well, there's so many episodes you listed right there. People are going to be
get all over the archive. We are 4 years plus of content. This is episode 211. If you're new to us, say inspirationation.org.uk, or just hit subscribe in whatever podcast player you're on. The full catalogue will be there for you to download and listen to. We get quite a few people who do that. Well, came 20, 30, 40, 50 episodes. We appreciate people out there doing it. If you like doing it, listen to IN at listen TOIN on Twitter. Let us know what you think. What are your favourite things? And we will do more of them. And again, people joined us. We have had a good what's the word I'm looking for? A good constant is the word I'm looking for. Stream of people on both TikTok and YouTube listening to us. Again, just hit subscribe, hit follow. You will get notified when we are going live each and every week. And all of your likes, follows, subscribes, etc. all help us in those mythical algorithms to get more of our content out there to more people. That's a magical solution. That is what you can do for us, and we massively appreciate it. Right, I think that is my reverse end shilling for what we do, Joe. Probably just need to catch that. Quick shout out to our third man, Ryan. He's away doing some work stuff at the moment, so he might be in and out for a few weeks, but we appreciate him even in his absence. Some would say more so in his absence.
Too right.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jose. Great episode. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation.
Catch you
guys later. Let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this conversation. I'd love to know. Put it in the comments below and I'll respond to every single comment because that's a commitment I make to you in this community. Also, don't forget to subscribe right over here because we need you to build this Inspiration Nation community to get the podcast out there and to help other people for free. And also don't forget to hit that bell right over here because if you hit that bell, then you're going to know when another videos go live. And don't forget to check out these videos right here next to me, because those are other podcast episodes that can really help you out. I really, really appreciate it. And lastly, don't forget to check the newsletter. The link is in the description below. That's where I can talk directly to you through the YouTube, throughout the social, because you can have a direct communication channel with me through the email and you can get to know everything that's going on with Inspiration Nation, ask me questions, and even give me suggestions on what you'd want us to talk about next. So I'd love to see you in the next video. So please click on those links. Please follow through. Please, let's get this community building. I appreciate you. So until next time, I'll see you in the next video, Inspiration Nation, and I'll catch you guys later.